Primer encuentro internacional de PERUMIN 33 Convención Minera al Bloque Australia. Queremos invitar, por favor, al excelentísimo embajador de Australia para Perú y Bolivia a tener la gentileza de acompañarnos en el estrado. Igualmente, invitaremos, por favor, a David Burton, Murray Hill, Natalia Gorroño y Augusto Cauti tener la bondad de acompañarnos en el estrado para dar inicio al bloque previsto. Para dar inicio formal al bloque Australia en esta tarde, tendremos el placer de invitar las palabras de inauguración correspondiente del excelentísimo embajador de Australia para Perú y Bolivia, Nicholas McCaffrey. El embajador es jefe del área política de la Embajada de Australia en las Filipinas en el año 2011 al 2014, jefe de gestión de crisis del Departamento de Asuntos Exteriores y Comercio en Canberra entre los años 2010 a 2011, jefe de misión adjunto de la Embajada de Australia en Argentina del año 2006 a 2009, asesor de coordinaciones especiales, misión de asistencia regional en las Islas Salomón entre los años 2004 a 2006, tercer secretario, Embajada de Australia en España, año 2000 a 2003, miembro del Grupo de Monitoreo de Tregua, Papúa Nueva Guinea, misión de corta duración, 1998, bachiller en Humanidades con honores en la Monash University en 1995, presidente del Club de Fútbol de la Universidad de Monash en 1995, y secretario de la Unión Estudiantil de la Universidad de Monash en 1994. Para nosotros es ciertamente grato y un privilegio invitar las palabras del excelentísimo embajador de Australia para Perú y Bolivia, Nicholas McCaffrey.
Pues muchas gracias. Gracias por la invitación de estar aquí. Gracias a los que han organizado esta parte de PERUMIN. Saludo a mis colegas, a Augusto de la Cámara de Comercio, Mari, que trabaja conmigo en la Embajada, a Natalia, que trabaja para el gobierno del estado de Victoria. Melbourne es la capital de Victoria, de donde soy yo, y el profesor David Brereton, que ha trabajado aquí en Perú durante los últimos años. Voy a empezar en español y luego cambiar a inglés. Yo llevo 3 años aquí como embajador de Australia. Antes de mi llegada, en septiembre del año 2014, tuvimos otro embajador. Él llevó 3 años en el cargo, 4 años en el cargo. Antes de él no teníamos una embajada, teníamos un consulado. Y lo que yo puedo decir que desde el año 2010 hasta ahora hemos visto un cambio profundo en nuestras relaciones con Perú. Este cambio ha sido liderado principalmente por los intereses mineros de mi país en el vuestro. La parte minera de nuestra relación bilateral con Perú sigue siendo el corazón de nuestras relaciones. Cada año hay más empresas con una presencia en Perú. Cada año hay más inversión australiana. Algunos años hay un poco más, pero cada año, desde el año 2010, hemos visto un crecimiento en esa parte de nuestra relación. También en los últimos par de años hemos visto unos nuevos intereses en nuevas partes de la economía peruana, pero principalmente nuestra relación todavía se basa en la colaboración alrededor del tema de la minería. Y esto no va a cambiar. De hecho, yo tengo confianza después de 3 años aquí como embajador de que esa parte de nuestra relación se va a profundizar mucho más. Como muchos de vosotros sabéis, mi gobierno está negociando ahora mismo con Minsetur, el ministro Eduardo Ferreiros, un muy buen ministro, y estamos negociando un TLC, a Free Trade Agreement. Hasta el día de hoy tenemos solo un TLC con Sudamérica, con Chile, que entró en vigor en el año 2009. O sea, esa negociación, que yo tengo los dedos cruzados, que se va a terminar en los meses que vienen, esto es, o será algo importante, no solo en la relación entre Australia y Perú, pero también para nuestra relación con el continente. Y no solo es un TLC con Perú, es un TLC con esta parte del mundo. Es una decisión estratégica de parte de mi gobierno. Entonces, antes de hablar un poquito sobre la presencia australiana aquí, quería destacar este punto. Nuestra relación con el Perú ha cambiado mucho en los últimos 7 años, desde la reapertura de nuestra embajada en Lima. El crecimiento que hemos visto está liderado por el sector minero, los intereses mineros en Australia. Con el TLC, yo tengo confianza en el futuro de relación en sí, pero sobre todo en esa parte, la parte minera. Tenemos mucho por ofrecer a Perú y también tenemos mucho por aprender. Okay, now I'd like to talk very briefly about the Australian presence, and just to underline that we have 13 companies that have joined us in the Australian Pavilion. Mari and her team have done an excellent job in terms of providing a program for them. I know there are also other Australians and Australian companies and investors who are here as well. In talking to them in the last couple of days, and I was here 2 years ago, I noticed there is a change in the mood, there is a change in the feedback that we have been provided, and it's certainly more optimistic than it was 2 years ago. And that gives me a lot of hope that in the coming months, hopefully just as the free trade agreement is finalised and signed and then brought into life, that we will see the mining sector picking up and the free trade agreement with Australia starting, and I'm sure that that will lead to even greater interest, and Australia can play an increasingly important role here. I think our companies are world leaders in their fields. They do an excellent job, the ones who are operating here, and I'd like to see many more of them here. Thank you very much for your time.
Agradecemos sinceramente al excelentísimo embajador de Australia para Perú y Bolivia, Nicholas McCaffrey, el haber brindado las palabras de inauguración para el Bloque Australia. Inmediatamente tendremos el placer de escuchar la primera de las conferencias previstas para esta jornada, la experiencia australiana en sostenibilidad y relaciones comunitarias en el sector minero. Esta conferencia estará a cargo del profesor David Brereton, quien es profesor emérito, que se unió a la Universidad de Queensland en el año 2001 como director del recién creado Centro de Responsabilidad Social en Minería, uno de los 6 centros de investigación que conforman el Sustainable Minerals Institute. Bajo su liderazgo se estableció como un centro líder mundial de experiencia en investigación y educación profesional en los desafíos sociales que enfrenta el sector de minería y minerales. Se retiró formalmente de la Universidad de Queensland en julio de 2016, pero sigue activo como investigador y consultor. El primer semestre de 2017 radicó en Lima, adscrito al Centro de Estudios sobre Minería y Sostenibilidad de la Universidad del Pacífico. Él es un graduado de la Universidad de Melbourne y tiene un doctorado en Ciencias Políticas de la Universidad de Stanford. Es grato invitar al profesor David Brereton.
It's good to have a small audience where it doesn't matter so much. In fact, I don't need this on to stand here in front of the microphone. You can put it on me later. You may notice there's a common theme amongst the Australians here, which is somehow or another connected to Melbourne, although some of us had the good sense to move north to Queensland 20 years ago. And to go to Melbourne University rather than Monash, which I should add as well. Okay. Sorry, that's an in joke. It's like in Peru, like making jokes about Pacifico and Católica, which I learnt not to do very early. Now, I've just been asked to talk briefly about the experience of Australia in sustainability and community relations in the mining sector. This is how I've organised that. A few observations about social dimensions of mining in Australia and Peru. What's similar and what's different? The second bit's easy. What's different? Lots. What's similar? Perhaps more than you think when you drill down. And leading on to that, what tools and skills and knowledge and capabilities have been developed in Australia to deal particularly with social challenges there might be transferable from Australia to Peru. And I'll take a bit more time at the end just to talk about an example. It's no more than that, but of a tool that's been developed by CSIRO, the National Science Agency, which is getting quite a lot of traction globally. So, how do Australia and Peru differ? Well, as everyone told me, and it's true, Peru es muy complicado than Australia. There's no question about that. A land of nested wicked problems, I've sometimes described it. Feel almost embarrassed by the simplicity of Australia when you go back there. Obviously, the countries differ in terms of their geography and history, level of economic and human development. So on the Human Development Index, which is probably one of the most accepted rankings, Australia is number 3 in the world, Peru number 87. Although you have to say, in the Peruvian context, it's on a trajectory upwards, which has been very impressive. Countries differ in terms of government capacity and strength of institutions, and sort of following on from that, the extent and intensity of social conflict. Don't get the impression that everybody in Australia welcomes mining with open arms, particularly if it's coal mining. However, by and large, anti-mining agitation and activism in Australia has been peaceful. There's much more use of political and legal channels rather than direct action as ways in which groups advance their objectives. And that connects to my previous point about the differences in capacity and strength of institutions. The countries kind of differ in where mining is conducted. In both Australia and Peru, a lot of mining is done in remote and challenging locations, climatically challenging for different reasons. The really big difference with Peru is there's lots of people living out there as well, whereas in Australia you're operating in in many cases, not always, but in many cases very remote, sparsely populated areas, and that creates particular social challenges in Peru, particularly when that's combined with, in the high Andes in particular, with really difficult and challenging historical legacies and high levels of poverty. So, having said that, the key community issues in Australia, if I list them off, they sound quite similar to those which manifest in Peru, although they manifest in different ways. Securing and maintaining community support for mining development, social licence, that's a big issue. As I said, the social licence, or the lack of it, is manifested in different ways, less by direct action, but it has the same consequences of either slowing or preventing mining development. Managing tensions between mining and agriculture over land and water, that's almost a global point of tension in the mining sector. I guess one difference in Australia, often the farmers are very large and well-resourced landowners rather than campesinos, and so that again creates a different dynamic. But the fundamentals about how do you navigate through this very difficult terrain of where there's competition for a scarce resource. Because mining is in remote areas, and particularly also because it's in areas where the people who are living out there are often indigenous. Big issues around creating local economic and employment opportunities for mining. That's the same in Peru. Australia making and implementing agreements with Indigenous people is incredibly important because of our legal framework, the Native Title Act, which gives rights to Indigenous peoples whose traditional lands are impacted on by resource developments. They're quite strong rights. They lead to legally binding agreements, and so and something at different estimates, 40 to 60% of Australian mines are on or near Indigenous lands. So this has become a huge issue, and lots of learnings there. And a looming issue in Australia, and I know also a looming issue in Peru, is around how to deal with the social as well as the environmental issues around planning for mine closure, and that certainly is now starting to come on to the radar in Peru also. So, as I said, they're kind of similar issues, but they play out in different ways. And from a sort of social perspective, to really deal with these issues, we always start in the social space by saying you have to understand and know your context in your community. A lot of that is context-specific knowledge. So what Australia doesn't offer, unless you have researchers over there who've worked in Latin America or worked in Peru, or I don't know whether anywhere else is similar, but other challenging operations, they can't bring knowledge, local knowledge about how that community is developed, why it is, and what their particular concerns are. So we don't, in the social space, we don't sell local knowledge, but we do have some things that are transferable. And that's what I wanted to focus on. In the Australian context, and I'll come back, I'll talk about this a bit more in a moment, certainly learnings about how to increase local economic participation in mining. Because social licence matters in Australia as it does elsewhere, the development of methodologies for monitoring community acceptance of and attitudes towards mining. So I will also, that will be my example from CSIRO. We have a lot of people and a lot of expertise in the area of social impact measurement and monitoring, the development of research techniques, innovative ways of collecting data and so on. Importantly, we have experience with making and designing and implementing community agreements, and I've discovered in many things in Peru, and apart from learning what I thought I knew but I don't, but I've learned the significance. In fact, there is lots of agreements in Peru, but there is no culture of agreement making, and there are no effective structures and institutions for doing agreement making. Australia's, and it was tough, but has developed that experience, planning tools and techniques, particularly around the broader dimensions around mine closure. And one thing that we think we've demonstrated is transferable is training and professional development for community relations specialists. So not to do an advertisement for the University of Queensland, but Sustainable Minerals Institute we're pretty certain was the world's first formal professional qualification in community relations for the resources sector. So versions of that program have actually transferred. There's one that runs out of Santiago in Chile. Some elements have been delivered in the Peruvian context. We also have consultants or former academics, Tony Kelly, who some of you might know, who actually brought a lot of teaching initially to Peru around dialogue. So I think we've developed, because when we train community relations specialists, we're not just training them to work in Australia, because Australia is a global industry and its specialists can go everywhere. So they, I think, are examples of things that are transferable. I'm just going to drill down on a couple of those. Mainly I will talk about the CSIRO reflexivity tool, but I want to say something also about the work that's been done in Australia around this, the challenge of increasing local economic participation. So Australia is fundamentally is an affluent society, where people are generally well educated, at least to secondary school level. However, quite a lot of mining done in Australia, as I've indicated, is in remote areas where large parts of the population are Indigenous. Indigenous people in Australia, particularly those living in remote areas, are disadvantaged and they're marginalised. That's why I talked about the recognition of Indigenous rights in Australia was so important in terms of helping to empower those groups, at least when there was mining or exploration proposed on their traditional lands. And that created a very strong business imperative for mining companies to be able to demonstrate a capacity for improved outcomes for Indigenous people, particularly in the area of employment and business development. They had to do that in order to secure agreements, because that's what Indigenous people wanted to negotiate over, not just compensation payments, but we want economic opportunities, and they had to be able to deliver on their commitments. So that's stimulated a body of work about how to build business capability where it didn't previously exist, how to attract and retain people into the workforce who have low education levels and may never have had a regular kind of organised job in an organisation like a mining company. Just on the slide, I've just given you examples of some of the best practice guides. We've produced, absolutely coincidentally, 2 of those are from the Centre of Social Responsibility in Mining, but that's because we did it first because mining companies paid us to do it. But there are also specialist organisations that have developed up on this. Many Rivers, which is a small group that deals with business development in remote and challenging contexts. Myuba, Indigenous-run business in Queensland, fantastically successful about bringing and training Indigenous people who've had no prior organised work experience to be trained up to work in the mining industry. And there are a range of other groups around like that. There's even an organisation especially for Aboriginal mining enterprises, which again are into capability. So I think the skills and knowledge there, certainly I think with some adaptation, working with local people, are highly transferable to this context. Now, the other example I wanted to talk about is it's really a methodology and an approach developed by CSIRO, which stands for the Commonwealth, nobody ever asked what it means, but I think it's Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organisation, correct? Amazing. It's like a trivia question. So CSIRO has very significant, along with our university sector, has very significant mining capability, and including in the broad area of social performance and community relations. And they've had a unit that for some years has really been working on and refining and developing, as I said, a methodology and approach, which they refer to as reflexivity. There's lots of talk about social licence in Australia and elsewhere, terms used here. Marvellous term because it can mean many things to different people. It's quite a fuzzy idea. But what CSIRO has been able to do is develop quite a rigorous research-based methodology for actually measuring the state of a social licence. Because the social licence is not a thing you have or you don't. A legal licence you have or you don't. It's pretty clear. It gets taken away from you. Social licences relate from begrudging acceptance that could vanish at any moment through to people really feeling, this is the gold star, a shared identity with the company, being forgiving of its mistakes and so on. So it's something that exists in degrees. So you don't measure a social licence by the absence of conflict. That's the worst thing you can do. Conflict sometimes often indicates a lack of social licence, but an absence doesn't mean you haven't got it. It just means that it hasn't materialised into conflict. So it's really important for companies, particularly those working in volatile social environments, to be able to, in a sense, to really understand where are they with their social licence? What are the trends? What's happening? Are we gaining or losing support? Are people's views of us changing? Do they trust us more or less? to measure this, to be able to measure and track this over time. Very important. I mean, that's kind of done in a way, companies do that in Peru the way, and sometimes they do surveys, but they're one-off, and a lot of this is very instinctive, intuitive. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So being systematic about this is really important because of conflict. We know about the costs of conflict. We know that conflict is not a hypothetical possibility in Peru, but something that manifests quite regularly. So just before this session, I presented another session of results of a study we've just done for the Society of SNMPE, Mining and Petroleum and Energy, on survey of their membership. And of the 26 companies that completed that survey, 16 in the last 5 years had experienced disruption to their operations because of conflict. So the majority. 4 of those that experienced that had incidents that resulted in deaths or injury, 4 not deaths or injury, but serious damage to their property. So it is a live risk. It is a really important, critical material risk for companies operating here. So SIRO has developed this tool. They've actually have applied it in South Africa, Chile, and Australia, and I think also some other countries as well. Broadly, what their process involves is essentially innovative data collection. So you might be sitting here saying, well, Peru, well, that's kind of, it's not a great idea, you know, running a drop-off, an email survey into the high Andes is not going to be very good. We know from work that probably only, I don't know, 5% of people probably have computers. Ringing them up on their landline's not going to be much good, and it's incredibly logistically difficult to go around and knock on doors. But some of these methodologies, there's actually very smart ways you can use mobile phones. So I know from going to the Andes that lots of people have mobile phones, and a lot more would have them if you said, here's a mobile phone, and we want you to, you know, answer a short survey for us every 2 or 3 months, and we'll pay for your airtime. It's a bit of a no-brainer as a way to do it. So this ability to adapt your data collection methods to particular circumstances, and I think these guys have done very well in terms of developing that as a methodology. Sitting behind that is a large database which is informed by theory, which is used to kind of make assessments about the current state of the license, to identify emerging trends, and then on top of that are tailored reports and graphics for getting that information quickly in front of key decision makers in a way that they can digest quickly, rather than have to plead guilty. Sometimes you hire a social scientist, you'll get a very long report, the essence of it which is that your complicated problem's actually much more complicated than you ever knew, which you need to know at one level, but you also need to have some key indicators to know how you're tracking, and that's what I think particularly that tool talks to. Sorry, and I should have, I managed to talk without putting my graphs on, but that's all right. We don't need to read that one, I've told you what it's about. So having said that, I've, as the, I think maybe the ambassador or the person who introduced me said, I've been Peru lots of times, mostly for short trips, but I had 5 months here this year. I love being here, keen to find ways to get back again. And I love being here because I've learnt so much. It's absolutely not one way of Australians who know how to sort all this stuff will come over and sort you. That is exactly not the case. As I say, we have tools and approaches that are useful. We need to partner with local people. I've in fact found Peru it's really a laboratory for experiment and innovation, because experiment and innovation happens where there's necessity. And the issues around preventing, resolving conflict, trying to improve the delivery of your development outcomes are critical here. So there's a two-way learning there. And I think also lessons to learn from designing and implementing community development initiatives in challenging social economic environments. So I think really the model for working forward with Australia, and certainly from my perspective as a university-based researcher, is not to fly in with answers and do it all for you, is to bring where we have expertise, but absolutely critical to find the right local partners who have that deep contextual knowledge that we will never be able to replicate. So that's all I needed to say at that stage, and just a bit of an overview. So thank you.
Profundamente agradecidos a Marie Hill, consejera comercial de Australia, Perú y Ecuador, por su brillante participación en esta jornada. Será ahora igualmente grato invitar a nuestra tercera conferencista, Natalia Gorroño. Is the Senior Trade and Investment Director, Latin America for the Government of Victoria, Australia. Victoria is one of the leading states of the Commonwealth of Australia. It has a larger GDP than Denmark, Singapore, Scotland, Chile, Finland, Israel, Hong Kong, Malaysia, or New Zealand. Victoria maintains a network of trade and investment offices in Australia, North and South America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. An Australian trainer, lawyer, Ms. Gorroño has led a wide range of initiatives and strategies to develop trade and investment opportunities between Australia and Latin America. She has a strong background working in the Latin American resources and energy, water, food, and agriculture sectors, as well as professional services. After working as a lawyer in Australia, Ms. Gorroño moved to Chile and worked advising Australian mining, energy generation, and mining services and technology companies entering and operating Chile and Latin America. These included companies such as Origin Energy, Estrella Resources, and Oniqua, among others. Ms. Gorroño then went on to work for the Australian Trade and Investment Commission at the Australian Embassy in Chile. In this role, Ms. Gorroño promoted Australia's expertise in the water sector across Latin America and supported companies operating in the mining, energy, food, and agriculture sector. Please, Ms. Natalia Gorroño.
Excellent. Fantastic. Es un verdadero placer estar aquí con ustedes hoy día y tener la oportunidad de conocer a la preciosa ciudad blanca de Arequipa. Mi propósito hoy día es muy simple, son tres. Quisiera, primero que nada, compartirles algo de información sobre el Estado australiano de Victoria y su conexión con la minería. En segundo lugar, quisiera explorar, por medio de preguntas, tres aristas que están ayudando a Victoria a innovar para mantener la productividad de la industria minera. Y tercero, quisiera compartir por qué el Estado de Victoria acaba de establecer oficinas en América Latina y por qué estamos aquí. Ya que estamos en la última presentación, quisiera hacer un ejercicio para que nos despertemos todos un poquitito y hacer una pregunta. Quisiera que levanten la mano aquellos que han visitado la ciudad de Melbourne. Fantástico. ¿La disfrutaron? Yo sí. David, I think you're outnumbered. Everybody likes Melbourne. So, fantastic. Pues bien, Melbourne es la capital del Estado australiano de Victoria. Estamos muy orgullosas de esta ciudad, ya que hace 3 semanas fue nombrada la ciudad más habitable del mundo por 7º año seguido por el Economist Intelligence Unit. Curiosamente, también es la ciudad en la cual habitan más zorros del mundo. Hay entre 6 y 23 zorritos en Melbourne por kilómetro cuadrado y está creciendo tan rápido que para el 2030 se especula que va a destronar Sydney como la ciudad más grande de Australia. Veamos Victoria en el mapa. Somos un estado pequeño, efectivamente, solamente 3% del territorio australiano. Eso dicho, somos responsables de casi el 25% de su actividad económica. Somos un centro de estudios, tenemos más de 1.600 alumnos internacionales disfrutando de nuestro estado. Somos un centro financiero y profesional. Este segmento aporta más de 63.000 millones de dólares al rendimiento económico de nuestro estado y administramos el 35% de los activos bancarios del país. Gracias a esto y otras cosas, están aquí en Melbourne las casas matrices de las mayores empresas mineras de Australia. Como para ponerlo en perspectiva, una vez más, la economía de Victoria es más grande que Singapur, Nueva Zelanda e incluso Chile. Así que somos un estado pequeñito pero picoso. También somos un estado que tiene un largo historial en el mundo minero. Fuimos la escena del primer Gold Rush, o la primera fiebre de oro de Australia. En 1850, el Gold Rush atrajo a más de 20 millones de diggers, o mineros, a nuestro estado de todo el mundo. Este descubrimiento generó una comunidad muy internacional y también impulsó el fuerte crecimiento de nuestro estado, consolidando las bases para su desarrollo durante los próximos 2 siglos. Hoy en día, los principales minerales que sí se extraen en Victoria son el oro, el cobre, minerales para la manufactura y el carbón para la energía. Victoria, desde que se comenzó a minar en ese estado, ha producido más de 2.400 toneladas de oro. Esto es equivalente al 32% del oro producido en Australia y el 2% del oro extraído en el mundo. Hoy en día, disculpen, ahí está. Hoy en día, Victoria es la central de operaciones de las casas matrices de las mayores mineras de Australia: BHP, Oceana Gold, Newcrest Mining, Alumina y Santa Barbara, entre otros. Las empresas mineras basadas en el Estado representan alrededor de 3/4 de los ingresos de la minería en la Bolsa de Valores de Australia. Victoria también es escenario de una vibrante industria de METS, como decimos en Australia. METS es Mining, Engineering, Technology and Services Companies, o empresas de tecnología, ingeniería y servicios para la minería. Hoy día tenemos más de 1.900 empresas de METS, las cuales en el 2012 representaron más de 17.000 millones de dólares para nuestra economía. Victoria es una de las mayores exportadoras de METS de Australia. Australia, similar al Perú, a Sudáfrica, a Brasil, Indonesia y Chile, cuenta con una riqueza mineral privilegiada. Pero lo que ha posicionado al país como un líder minero es que su industria se ha enfocado fuertemente en invertir, en emplear e innovar para lograr valor adicional de los recursos mineros. Gracias a esto, hoy en día la industria de METS en Australia genera más de 90.000 millones de dólares en ingresos para el país cada año. Quisiera mostrarle 3 ejemplos desarrollados en el estado de Victoria que reflejan aspectos claves para generar innovación en el sector minero y así poder aumentar la productividad. Estos aspectos son la investigación y desarrollo, el desarrollo del capital humano y, tercero, las políticas públicas que ayudan a crear un ecosistema de innovación. Reflexionando en el primer punto, investigación y desarrollo. Victoria recibe el 40% de los fondos del gobierno federal de Australia destinados a investigación y desarrollo. Lo recibe a través de sus universidades, centros de investigación y desarrollo, gremios y otras estructuras que forman parte del sistema de innovación de nuestro Estado. En el área minera, estos fondos han sido destinados a generar innovación en exploración minera, en tecnologías que mejoran la productividad, en marcos para mejorar la gestión de las mineras y en el desarrollo sustentable. Un ejemplo muy interesante de investigación y desarrollo que se está desarrollando en Australia puede revolucionar la manera en que la industria en el futuro lleva a cabo exploración minera. En este caso, se estudian las hojas de eucaliptos para facilitar la exploración minera. Téngame paciencia que esto sí tiene sentido. Científicos del CSIRO observaron que las raíces de los árboles de eucaliptos descienden por la tierra decenas de metros y actúan como una bomba hidráulica, bombeando agua y trazos de minerales desde la tierra hacia arriba de los árboles. El oro tiene un efecto tóxico sobre estas plantas, por ende los eucaliptos mueven las partículas de este metal hacia sus hojas, donde puede ser más fácilmente expulsado y botado al suelo. Los científicos examinaron las hojas de árboles de eucaliptus en regiones mineras con alto contenido de minerales y encontraron una mayor concentración de partículas de oro en estas hojas. Aunque estos estudios aún siguen bajo desarrollo, indican que es potencialmente posible obtener una idea de lo que ocurre bajo la tierra tomando muestras de la vegetación sobre la superficie, sin la necesidad de potencialmente llevar a cabo largas campañas de sondaje. Este ejemplo, algo colorido, demuestra que las opciones para minimizar costos y aumentar productividad a través de la innovación son innumerables. Vale la pena invertir en innovación para seguir creciendo. El segundo punto que quisiera tocar es ilustrar la importancia del capital humano. El capital humano está intrínsecamente ligado a la innovación. Sin buen capital humano va a ser difícil poder innovar y crear nuevas ideas. Mari nos dio una fantástica presentación sobre la contribución de la educación técnica en la minería. Por ende, yo solamente me voy a enfocar en un ejemplo que ilustra el potencial de cooperación entre empresas y universidades para lograr profesionales con las capacidades para solucionar los problemas a los cuales se enfrenta la minería. Mi ejemplo involucra dos empresas, MMG y Newcrest Mining, y la Universidad de Monash University. En este caso, hace como 15 años, la industria minera, incluyendo MMG y Newcrest, se enfrentaron a una seria falta de ingenieros en minería. Newcrest Mining y MMG abordaron a Monash para intentar resolver este problema y acordaron diseñar un currículum para estudiar ingeniería mecánica que esté enfocada 100% en solucionar los desafíos y problemas prácticos que impactaban a la minería. De este modo, se logró incrementar la cantidad de graduados que salían listos para insertarse profesionalmente en el momento de que finalizaban sus estudios al trabajo y que estaban capacitados para poder empezar a abordar de manera efectiva los desafíos a los cuales se enfrentaba la minería. La carrera de ingeniería de Monash atrajo numerosos estudiantes nacionales, así como extranjeros, y permitió que las empresas socias pudiesen contar con el capital humano necesario para beneficiarse del boom minero y también para enfrentar de manera resiliente el fin del superciclo de los minerales. El tercer punto, que es importante para poder generar innovación, son las políticas públicas. Es muy importante generar un ecosistema de innovación y para esto el gobierno, como generador de marcos institucionales, juega un importante rol. Como consecuencia de reformas adoptadas durante la década de los 80, Australia ha podido navegar de manera relativamente satisfactoria transformaciones económicas que han tenido lugar en las últimas décadas. Victoria ha sido un importante centro de manufactura automotriz, manufactura de equipos de defensa y manufactura de textiles, pero a medida que se ha ido globalizando el mundo y de que han entrado actores más competitivos como Asia, las empresas en estos sectores en Victoria han corrido el riesgo de perder su competitividad y efectivamente morir. Entonces, el gobierno de Victoria identificó la oportunidad que presentaba la industria de METS y el potencial de transformar estas empresas de manufactura de vehículos, defensas y textiles hacia la industria de METS. ¿Por qué no hacerlo? METS estaba creciendo en Australia a un 15% anual, representa el 6.4% del Producto Interno Bruto y 17.000 millones de dólares para la economía victoriana. Vale la pena explorar cómo poder adaptar estas empresas y este know-how a la industria minera. Para esto, el gobierno de Victoria generó una iniciativa que se llama VicMEX. Esta es un pantallazo de la página web de VicMEX. Es una red y plataforma gratuita que permite apoyar a pequeñas y medianas empresas de manufactura a aplicar sus capacidades para la minería. La red ayuda a estas empresas a entender las tecnologías y servicios que necesita el mundo minero, entender cómo ellos pueden obtener el financiamiento y la ayuda para poder traspasar sus capacidades hacia la minería y cómo pueden conectar con sus clientes finales. Este es un ejemplo que ha implementado el gobierno de Victoria para tratar de generar un sistema de innovación. No es el único. Para concluir, quisiera recalcar que estas tres aristas, inversión en investigación y desarrollo, mejorar el capital humano y generar ecosistemas para mejorar ecosistemas de innovación, ha ayudado a las empresas de Victoria a adaptarse y generar soluciones para la minería local y mundial. Estas no son las únicas iniciativas, pero sí ayudan a ilustrar cómo hemos abordado estos desafíos. Ahora, a mi último punto. Disculpen. ¿Por qué estamos, como Gobierno de Victoria, en Perú y América Latina? En parte, mi presencia aquí hoy se debe a que el Gobierno de Victoria ha establecido hace unos meses su primera oficina de comercio e inversión para América Latina. El comercio entre Victoria y América Latina se ha duplicado durante los últimos 10 años, con un crecimiento del 25% durante los últimos 4. Nuestras más importantes empresas en el ámbito minero, incluyendo a Orica, Swan Global y BHP, entre otras, han encontrado fértiles oportunidades en América Latina y en el Perú. Y nosotros, como gobierno, identificamos el potencial de poder apoyar la entrada de otros jugadores. Estas conexiones se refuerzan aún más a partir de la próxima semana con el lanzamiento de una nueva ruta aérea que conecta a América Latina directamente con Melbourne. A partir del 5 de octubre se lanza un vuelo directo desde Santiago a Melbourne. Para apoyar el crecimiento entre ambas regiones, hemos establecido nuestra primera oficina en Santiago de Chile y esperamos que nosotros, como equipo de Victoria, podamos actuar como una plataforma para profundizar, en especial, las relaciones del ámbito minero entre América Latina, particularmente Victoria y Perú. Y es un verdadero gusto poder estar acá en PERUMIN tomando el primer paso para intentar lograr este objetivo. Muchas gracias.
Well, first, thank you all for the presentations. Were really good. I think all of us would appreciate what you have done. And now I switch to Spanish because it's going to be easier for me. A ver, sé que esta hora ya es un poco tarde y todos deben estar pensando dónde comer o dónde ir a celebrar. Y la primera pregunta, la verdad, después de haber escuchado los comentarios es, ¿cuál es Arequipa? ¿Queensland o Victoria? ¿Ah? Queensland, no. ¿Ah? ¿Cuál es la Arequipa de Australia? Ah, no me quedan dudas todavía. Bueno. Ok. Primero yo quisiera empezar con Nick. Si alguien tiene preguntas, por favor, hacérmelas llegar. Pero primero quisiera empezar con Nick. Y como embajador, ya van 3 años en el Perú, llegando a 4. Y yo creo que es tiempo ya de comenzar a ver, ¿no? Un poco qué ha pasado en estos años y qué es lo que se podría venir, ¿no? Obviamente, no quisiera preguntarte qué sugerencias para el nuevo embajador, pero sí un poco cuáles crees tú que deberían ser los siguientes pasos que debemos tomar en esta relación, porque esta relación ha cambiado muchísimo, ¿ok? Yo les cuento rápidamente, o sea, Perú-Australia hace 10, 12 años, surfing, ¿no? Surfing, ¿no? Campeón del mundo, Perú el primer campeón, campeona mujer se coronó en Australia, 2004, y de ahí en minería sí algo, pero realmente creo que cuando viene MMG con la inversión fuerte, creo que ahí se da un boom, que ya había una presencia australiana, pero no era realmente fuerte, ¿no? Entonces es una relación que se está construyendo de hace 10 años acá. Hoy en día estamos hablando de TPP, de TLC, de Air Services Agreement, educación, turismo, la Cámara de Comercio, pero Australia, el gobierno de Victoria viniendo acá, además desde Chile, que no es casualidad, estamos Chile, Australia, Perú, no es casualidad. Embajador, ¿qué puede decir?
What I would say, and porque ya es tarde, voy a hablar en inglés, discúlpenme, pero what we want, what I want, what Mari wants, what David wants, and he's not doesn't formally work for the Australian government, what Natalia wants, what we all want is a bigger, broader, deeper relationship with Peru. You're right. It has. We opened an embassy in Lima in 1968. We closed it in 1986, and as I said before, we reopened it in 2010. So we have had formal diplomatic relations with Peru for a long time. But it is only in the last decade or so where the relationship has started to gain some traction. It's started to gain the attention of more than a handful of Australians involved in the mining sector. And that is exactly what we want. Our relationship with Peru was like a small plant. It was green, it was healthy, but it was pretty small and it didn't have many branches. And so when I came, and that was 3 years ago, and building on the work that the previous ambassador and previous trade commissioners had done, we wanted to make the plant grow bigger, but also to make it have more branches, more leaves on it. And we have had some success that is happening. You've pointed out the Air Services Agreement. So in May this year, the Australian government signed an Air Services Agreement that will permit direct flights between Peru and Australia. Now, I have to say that there is no commercial interest in doing so at the moment, but there could be.
the way the relationship has grown, the number of Australians who now come here for tourism. This year we think it could be 50,000. That number just continues to go up. And one of the interesting things about Australian tourists who come here is that for many years they came for Machu Picchu. I want to go to Machu Picchu. But what we're finding now is that it's maybe about 50-50. And 50% say Machu Picchu and 50% say the food. Now that is a powerful combination that your country has. Amazing cultural treasures with fabulous food, and the restaurants and the development of the tourism sector around that. So we are very confident that we are going to see many more Australians come here in the years ahead. Now many of them come, have a holiday, go home, tell a couple of friends and move on with their lives. But a number of them look, when they go home, for opportunities to come back and do business here. And so I think as the numbers get bigger of tourists that are coming here, you're going to see, and there are a couple of well-known Australian companies where that happened. They came on a holiday, they saw an opportunity, and they're back now building up businesses. And so, to answer your question, we want the relationship to be a large tree, a tall tree with lots of branches and bushes. We do look, and I know this is difficult for Peruvians sometimes, we do look to the Australia-Chile relationship. Chile is a relationship that Australia probably has its most developed set of relations. And there are things that relationship has that we don't yet have. And we are seeking to add them to our relationship with Peru. And I am confident, as I said before, that given the progress in the last 10 years, that we are well on the way to having a relationship that is at least as broad and deep as the one with Chile, and fingers crossed that it becomes broader and deeper in the years ahead.
Great. Gracias. Y Natalia, hablando de las cosas que ha estado mencionando Nick, ¿no? Que, digamos, cómo van a ser las relaciones o qué espera del futuro, yo te diría brevemente en el tema de Victoria con el Perú, ¿no? Empresas victorianas, ¿qué oportunidades ves para empresas victorianas en el Perú? Y yo también diría viceversa, ¿no? Yo me atrevería a decir qué oportunidades también habrían para los peruanos, qué podemos hacer en Victoria. Perfecto. ¿No? Estoy pensando en gastronomía, por ejemplo, ¿no? Restaurantes, no sé, lo primero que me viene a la cabeza.
Perfect. I think that the opportunities both way are incredibly exciting. I think the similarities in industries between Peru, Australia and Victoria are probably the basis to where the opportunities lie. So our countries have a very strong mining base as one of our main exports. We're agriculture producers, we have strong strengths in fisheries, etc. So to me, there's opportunities for companies both ways in a few of those sectors. For Victorian companies here, I think the mining industry is particularly exciting. Peru seems to be growing at an incredible pace, coming from Chile, especially, where things seem to have slowed down a little bit. I love seeing the mentality and then the enthusiasm to grow the Peruvian mining sector. So I think in Peru, there's opportunities for our services and technology companies, but I also think there's opportunity for investment from our companies across here. I also think that there's opportunities for us in agriculture and infrastructure. I think those are the areas that have really struck me for Victoria here. The other way around, I think there's opportunities as well, especially for Peruvian companies that are looking to expand internationally. Those that are looking at entering Asia, we would love to have them based in Melbourne. So have their headquarters for Asia, Australia, and New Zealand in Melbourne. And I think there we shouldn't limit ourselves to any, not just say restaurants, but there is an opportunity for, say, potential METS companies from Peru to establish themselves in Melbourne. I think the opportunities are endless, provided that it's companies that are looking to grow internationally, and we would be delighted to receive them and support their entry into Victoria and Australia.
Excelente. Y además también, ¿por qué la relación Australia-Chile, ¿no? No sé si ustedes lo saben, y acá me sale el abogado, ¿no? Tienen una ventaja con nosotros como competitiva, ¿no? Hay un tratado de libre comercio ya entre Australia y Chile. Hay un convenio para evitar el doble impuesto, la doble imposición. Y también tienen ya este programa de work and travel visas, which is going to come into Peru as well soon.
Very soon.
Y por eso también hay este tema de que muchas inversiones australianas, y eso los puedo contar yo de la Cámara, recibimos a través de Chile, ¿no? Entonces esta relación, yo lo decía, no es casual, es una relación que se da también en función de estos acuerdos de libre comercio y de temas legales entre estados que generan que haya suerte de pass-through vía Chile todavía. Espero que pronto sea un poco más directo con Perú, esperemos. Bueno, y ahora Marie, ¿no? En la misma línea de lo que venimos conversando, oportunidades, Yannick nos dio el big picture de los temas, Natalia nos ha enfocado el tema de las empresas victorianas o el Arequipa, no sé todavía. Y Marie, yo te diría en la parte de educación, ¿no? Tu experiencia, wow, educación, wow, ok. ¿Qué podemos tomar, ¿no? En base a lo que tú has visto en lo que es la situación en la que estamos en Perú, ¿no? Educación es un big issue en Perú, es un tema, yo creo que es un tema que venimos atrasados. Hemos tenido un problema, un gabinete de ministros este fin de semana, básicamente por un tema de educación, lo cual de alguna manera yo creo que es bueno, porque que el Estado, en un tema que sea educación, que igual salga a la palestra, que sea por fin un tema principal, creo que es importante para el desarrollo de nosotros como país, ¿no? Y tú conoces ya la realidad peruana, ¿qué cosas podemos tomar de educación, sea técnica, profesional, de Australia? ¿Qué cosas podemos importar?
Well, I don't want to pretend to tell Peruvians what they should do, because that's for Peru to determine. And I think that Peru has its future before it, and as Natalia was saying, there is so much opportunity in Peru, and in the mining sector and in general, Peru has so many advantages. We heard the mining minister talk about how relatively unexplored Peru's territory is, so there's still so much to discover. It has a youthful population. I can't remember what the figure is, but the majority of the population is 25 and under. Peruvians are such hard workers, so they have a great human capital resource that that Peru can more fully exploit. It's well situated in Latin America with access to the Pacific. It's an APEC partner country. With this wonderful natural endowment and human capital advantages, I think now is a great time because the market seems to be turning and there seem to be some green shoots. Notwithstanding what's happened over maybe the last 4 or 5 days, this seems to be a good political environment at the moment. The minister seems very capable. I hope that she can drive further investor confidence in Peru, and so it makes sense to me that if Peru is to take full advantage of these attributes, training the people and the investment by companies and government, together with the education sector, and as Natalia again was saying, research and development. And I think some of the ministers have touched on the importance of collaboration between the education sector or academia, government and industry, and that would be a very powerful impulse for Peru to fully exploit these advantages.
Gracias. Good. Last but least, David. Actually, in English. I got a question for you, but I have 2 questions from the people here in the audience, and they are both related to mining. They are both very direct. One on automatization, on equipment replacing people, the conflict that may generate, how to handle this, and the other one related to cluster. Queensland has a lot of experience, Australia in mining clusters, cluster of mining. What in particular from those issues, bearing in mind that they could be really applicable to Peru, no? How you think we can manage the automation issue, and how we can manage the clusters, no, in Peru?
Thank you for a couple of easy questions to finish on. Look, the automation issue, I think actually was apparent in the industry 4 or 5 years ago, I'd like to say if only they'd read our report on the topic at the time, but it has attracted a lot of focus now. I think it is a really significant issue for Peru because mining is mostly conducted in areas where there are no other regular employment opportunities. In fact, a lot of the conflict around mining is because there's not enough jobs to go around. I think it would be really short-sighted, and I actually don't think the companies here would do it, would be to rush into full-scale automation on the basis that you've done an analysis. It will save you money, it will cost you lots of money because that will be a trigger point for conflict. I think that needs to be, 10, 15-year strategy with a basis of dialogue around trying to create other ways in which communities benefit from mining. They can do that, for example, by creating foundations and other things where there's a revenue stream that is shared and so on, but it's about thinking creatively about it. It will happen. I can't say, there's lots of people, there's more people than you've ever seen any other mine in a Peruvian mine holding sticks and everything else. That can't go on, but to do it abruptly I think would be the worst thing that could happen for the industry, so it needs a dialogue and a strategy. Clusters, complicated issue, great idea. If you could emulate Antofagasta, that would be fantastic. I guess Arequipa's the best geographic alternative to Lima, or maybe Cajamarca, but it's problematic. Getting things out of Lima into other areas, everybody wants to do that. I don't have any great insights on how to achieve it.
Okay. Y bueno, solo para terminar brevemente, no sé quién quiere responder. Estando en Arequipa y siendo un tema minero importante, ¿no? Hoy día en la mañana estuve en la conferencia de Tom Butler, y Tom Butler de ICMM habló de 4 países que habían hecho una encuesta de cómo la minería ayudaba al crecimiento económico, y eran Australia, Chile, Estados Unidos y Perú. Los 3, las encuestas eran positivas a favor de la minería para el crecimiento del país. Yo veía eso de qué envidia, ¿no? Porque en el Perú más bien todavía estamos con el tema de si minería sí o minería no, ¿no? ¿Qué hicieron en Australia para que la gente realmente se dé cuenta lo importante que es como vehículo para el crecimiento, como vehículo para el desarrollo y para lograr lo que es Australia? Vamos a todos los rankings, top 10 en freedom, top 10 en corruption, número 2 en índice de desarrollo humano. No quiero seguir. ¿Qué hicieron en Australia para conseguir este proud, o no sé si proud, pero en todo caso pro minería, ¿no? No sé quién, Nick, David.
You're not asking me to comment on all of that because I wasn't listening to the translation. I think. Why is it so?
Mining in Australia, what did we get right?
There was maybe I'm the only person old enough up here to remember. There was a book that came out in the early 1960s in Australia called The Lucky Country, and we've been lucky on a whole range of reasons. It is. By comparison, the complexity of Peruvian geography, history and everything. So I think trying to emulate to be like Australia is not it. Maybe look for other models. Chile is another model, although Chile is also a bit simpler. Yeah. But sorry, a key variable is governance and institutions, and that's the key challenge for Peru at the moment, I think, is trying to build is to build a better institutional framework.
Okay, thank you, David. Bueno, muchas gracias a todos. Gracias, Isabel, por invitarnos a este panel.
Gracias.